The Old Bay Club sat at the end of East Bay Street, its shutters black against pale stucco, its chandeliers already burning at 7 o'clock. 400 guests moved beneath them in silk and cufflinks. A string quartet played something older than the room. Adam Whitfield stood at Station 2 in a white shirt, straightening a row of cut glass tumblers. A young server had just dropped a crumb of bread onto Dean Corliss's sleeve, and Corliss had raised his voice. Adam stepped between them and said one quiet sentence. Corliss lifted his glass of red wine. He tilted it. The wine ran down the front of Adam's shirt, through 3 buttons, into the belt. 400 faces went still at once. Hannah Reed, standing 3 meters away, watched her own glass of water stop halfway to her mouth. Adam did not step back. He did not wipe. He looked down at the stain, then he looked up at Corliss. Stay through the end. In the next 48 hours, a $1.3 billion deal will vanish, and no one in that room will understand why, except the man wearing the stained shirt. Charleston woke slow the next morning. Fog lay flat over the Battery. The bells of St. Michael's marked 7. In a narrow kitchen on Meeting Street, Adam Whitfield set 2 plates on a wooden table. Toast, eggs, a slice of orange. On the refrigerator behind him, held in place by a magnet shaped like a crab, was a hand-drawn tide chart, ruled with a pencil. Ben was 9. He sat with his knees under the table and read the chart while he ate. Low at 2:11, Ben said. 2:11, Adam said. They ate without talking after that. Adam poured himself a second cup of coffee and looked out the window at the palmetto in the courtyard. His shirt this morning was pale blue and clean. He drove Ben to the small private school on Wentworth. He touched the top of the boy's head at the curb, watched him walk to the door, and pulled away only when the door had closed. At Old Bay Club, Adam entered through the staff gate off the alley behind Church Street. The kitchen crew called him by his first name. The florist said good morning without looking up from her buckets. He climbed the back stairs to a small office overlooking the courtyard and hung his jacket on a wooden peg. On his desk lay the maintenance schedule for the autumn ballroom, the staffing sheet for an August gala, and a note from the events coordinator about acoustics in the Palmetto Room. He worked through the pile in silence for an hour. Across the harbor in Mount Pleasant, Hannah Reed was already at the whiteboard. The Reed Marine Systems office sat above a marine supply shop, 3 glass rooms carved out of an old warehouse. Sensor housings lay on a bench beneath a coffee-stained schematic. Hannah wore a navy blazer with the sleeves pushed to her elbows. Her brother Colin, older than her by 3 years, general counsel and the closest thing the company had to a chief operating officer, laid a bound term sheet on the table. 1.3, Colin said. Hannah opened the binder. Corliss Shipping Group, buyer of 40%. A companion agreement bundling Reed Marine's port security platform into 3 long-term service contracts along the southeastern seaboard. Co-financing anchored by a limited partner commitment from Whitfield Capital. Hannah turned to page 7. She uncapped a red pen. In the margin she wrote, in small blocked letters, Class B principal, who? Colin looked at the note. Whitfield's LP consent runs through a Class B holder, he said. Not the board. Not the interim chair. Who? The filing lists an individual. A. Whitfield. Hannah drew a line under the note and closed the binder. For a moment, she looked past Colin at the harbor. Something crossed her mind. A white shirt under a chandelier. A stain spreading down 3 buttons. A face that had not moved. She let the thought sit and did not name it. At noon, her assistant knocked and set a plate of half a sandwich on the corner of her desk. Hannah did not eat. Back at Old Bay Club, a member of the housekeeping staff carried Adam's stained shirt in a plastic bag to the dry cleaner 4 doors down. Adam had not asked her to. She did it anyway. When she came back, she left the receipt on his desk without a word. On the credenza behind Adam's chair stood a framed photograph. A woman in a yellow rain jacket at the wheel of a small sailboat, a boy of 6 leaning against her hip. Rachel Whitfield. Ben. The date was written in pencil on the back. April, 3 years ago. His phone lit up. A voicemail from Margaret Prescott, the family's attorney and the trustee of the Whitfield Trust. 2 sentences, no urgency in her voice. There's a consent letter coming in from Corliss. It'll be on your desk Monday. We should sit down before you sign. Adam listened to the message twice. He set the phone screen down on the desk. He looked at the photograph on the credenza for a while, and then he went back to the ballroom staffing sheet. Outside, the fog had lifted. The harbor caught the late morning sun. Monday morning. Margaret Prescott came through the office door at 9:15, a leather portfolio under her arm, her gray hair pulled back with a tortoiseshell clip. She was 55 and had been the Whitfield family's counsel for 20 years. She had drafted the trust that governed Adam's inheritance, and she had drafted the interim arrangement that had let him step back 3 summers ago. Adam pushed a chair out for her. "Coffee," he said. "I won't be long." She sat. She opened the portfolio and set a manila envelope on the desk between them. Adam did not touch it. "LP consent letter," Meg said. "Whitfield Capital Co-Financing, Corliss/Reed Marine Facility. Class B principal signature required." She let the phrase sit. "That's you, Adam." Adam looked at the envelope. He read the top line through the address window. He turned it over and set it face down on the desk, the flap resting against the wood. Meg watched him. "Corliss doesn't know?" Adam said. "Corliss thinks Rand is the signatory. Rand has never corrected him." Adam nodded once. "Deadline?" "Friday. He wants the deal to close by end of day." Adam picked up his coffee. He did not drink from it. He set it back down. "Leave it with me." Meg closed the portfolio. She looked at him for one long beat, and then she stood. "Adam." He waited. "You know what he's asking you to sign." "I know." She left the office. Adam sat with the envelope face down on his desk for 11 minutes without opening it. Then he stood up, walked to the credenza, straightened the framed photograph half an inch to the left, and went downstairs to check the delivery entrance for a shipment of linens. Across the harbor, at the same hour, Hannah Reed was in her office running a search on a public database. The Whitfield Capital private placement filing sat open on her screen. She scrolled through the officer schedules and stopped at the exhibit that listed voting classes. There, halfway down, in the column marked Class B Principal, was a single line. A. Whitfield. Individual. She opened a second window. She typed Adam Whitfield Charleston into a records search. Property Assessor. Old Bay Club Members Only Directory. A photograph on the club's charitable page from the previous winter, taken at a groundskeeper's retirement dinner. Adam standing at the back of the frame in a gray coat. She looked at that photograph for a long time. She opened her phone and pulled up the news reel from the Coastal Foundation Gala. There he was. White shirt. Red stain. The same face. Hannah did not say anything out loud. She closed her laptop. She reached for the interoffice line and picked it up. "Kate, move my 3 o'clock with Corliss to next week." "He'll ask why." "Tell him I'm reviewing the term sheet." She hung up. For 20 minutes, she sat at her desk and did not open the computer again. The half sandwich from Friday was still on the corner, wrapped in wax paper. She had not eaten it. Outside the window, a shrimp trawler crossed the harbor slow. A pelican dropped along the piling by the marina. Hannah watched the bird until it steadied on the wood. Then she pulled a legal pad toward her, and, in the same small blocked letters she had used on Friday, she wrote 2 words. "Ask Meg." She circled them once. Tuesday afternoon, Hannah walked through the front doors of Old Bay Club in a charcoal suit, holding a folder. The events coordinator, a small woman in a navy dress named Corinne, led her past the portraits of shipping merchants and into the Palmetto room. The chandeliers were down for maintenance. A ladder stood in the corner. At the sound board along the back wall, in shirt sleeves, Adam was checking a set of channel meters against a printed cue sheet. He looked up. He recognized her at once. She recognized him a heartbeat earlier. Neither of them said anything about Saturday. "Palmetto seats 150 for a seated dinner," Corinne said. 200 for standing reception. Load in from the alley." Hannah nodded. She walked the perimeter. She stopped near the soundboard. "How are the acoustics off that back wall?" "Liv," Adam said. "You'll want the array pointed inboard about 15 degrees. Otherwise the granite kicks the mids." "Kicks the mids." "Comes back at you around 3 kilohertz." Hannah looked at the wall. She looked at Adam. "We're doing a product demo. There will be audio. I'll set the aim before your rehearsal." "Thank you." Corinne excused herself to answer a call. Hannah stayed. She looked at the cue sheet on his console. In the corner, in the margin, was a small handwritten note in pencil about tide. "You track the tide?" she said. "Loading dock floods at Spring High," Adam said. "We plan around it." "When's high this Friday?" 6:04 in the morning. 6:31 in the evening. He did not look at a chart when he said it. Hannah nodded slowly. Behind them, the front doors opened. A woman from the school office came in holding a small boy by the hand. Ben was in his uniform jacket, a paper folder under one arm. He looked up and saw his father at the far end of the room. Dad forgot the keys. Adam walked over. He took a set of house keys from his pocket, handed them to the woman, ruffled the top of Ben's head, and turned him back toward the door. Ben paused as he passed Hannah. He looked up at her, considered her the way children consider a new grown-up, and said, "Ma'am." Then he went out with the school aide. Hannah watched the door close. "Yours?" she said. "Ma." She held the folder against her chest. 6:04, she said. 6:04. She walked to the front doors alone. In the vestibule, she paused for a moment with her hand on the brass push bar. Then she went out into the afternoon light. Wednesday morning, Dean Corliss walked into the Whitfield Capitol lobby on the 18th floor without an appointment. The building sat on Broad Street, above the courthouse. Corliss wore a charcoal suit and did not remove his coat. He asked for Rand Whitfield by first name. Rand received him in the corner office. He was Adam's uncle, 65, gray-haired, careful. Since the summer of the accident, he had run the interim chair with the discipline of a man holding a chair warm for someone else. Corliss put both hands on the back of a leather chair and did not sit. "I need the consent letter signed by Friday, Rand. My board expects to announce Monday." "The principal is reviewing," Rand said. "Rand." "The principal is reviewing." Corliss studied him. He did not know that Rand was not the principal. He assumed the phrase was procedural cover. Reviewing what? Structure, timing, certifications. There is nothing to review. My people have walked your people through the docks twice. "The principal is reviewing," Rand said, the third time in the same even voice. Corliss placed a business card face up on the desk. "By Friday, Rand." He walked out. When the door closed, Rand picked up the internal line and called Meg Prescott 2 floors down. He came in. I expected him to. He asked me by name. He still doesn't know. He still doesn't know. Meg exhaled quietly. "Tell Adam." Rand hung up. At the same hour, in the Reed Marine conference room, Colin closed a set of insurance filings on the table and looked up. "There's a hole." Hannah lifted her head. Corliss Shipping's protection and indemnity escrow. 3 quarters running. Not restated. How much? On the face of the disclosures? Around 180 million light. Hannah set down her pen. Any explanation on record? An accounting note. Vague. It won't hold under closing diligence. Hannah looked out the window at the boats in the marina. "Give me a clean copy of the last 410KS and every Marine Board filing since 2022. On it." She waited for him to leave. Then she picked up her phone and, from her personal number, sent a 2-line text to Margaret Prescott at the number written on the back of a business card Meg had once left with the receptionist. "Coffee. Outside working hours. Tomorrow." Meg wrote back inside a minute. "Old Bay Club. Library. 4 o'clock. That evening, in his office above the courtyard, Adam stood at the window with his hand flat on the desk beside the still unopened envelope. The harbor lights came on one by one along the seawall. Thursday morning, Hannah drove to the Corliss Shipping headquarters on Concord Street. Dean Corliss met her in his private office on the 2nd floor. 2 ship models sat on the sideboard, brass on mahogany. She did the P&I escrow, she said. "Explain the gap." Corliss laughed once and reached for a decanter. "Accounting quirk. Temporary. My CFO can walk your team through it Monday morning." "Explain it now." "Hannah, sit down." "Explain the 180 million, Dean." Corliss set the decanter down. He looked at her for a long moment, and then he waved a hand as if brushing something small off a sleeve. "It's disclosure timing. Nothing more. Every shipping company in this market has these floats." "That's a no." "That is a yes. Come Monday morning, my people will show you." Hannah picked up her folder from where she had set it on the arm of the chair. She looked at him one last time. "I'll see myself out." She did not shake his hand. In her car in the parking lot, she wrote 3 lines on the folder cover, folded the paper closed, and drove to the Battery. At 4 o'clock, she walked into the reading room behind the library at Old Bay Club. Dark wood, low green lamps, a single window that looked out over the courtyard. Meg Prescott was already there. On the table between them were two file folders. Meg set her hands flat on the wood and did not open them yet. Ms. Reed. Ms. Prescott. Before I open these, I need you to understand something. I am the trustee. I answer to one person. He gave me leave to sit down with you today. Nothing in these files leaves this room without his signature. Understood. One is a due diligence summary Whitfield Capital has been assembling since 2024. The other is a set of 4 questions the principal would need Reed Marine to answer in writing before he can consider signing. She turned the second folder around and slid it toward Hannah. Hannah opened it. 4 typed questions on a single page. She read them once. She read them again. They matched, 1 for 1, the 4 points Dean Corliss had waved away in his office 2 hours before. Hannah closed the folder slowly. She looked up at Meg. How long has the principal been asking these questions? Since a call Mr. Corliss placed in the summer of 2024, asking Whitfield to co-finance. Yes. Hannah, may I take these? You may take that one. Meg tapped the questions. The other stays with me until the principal decides. Hannah slid the questions into her satchel. Down the hall, the tea room clinked. Ben was there with a school aide, half an hour before Adam finished his rounds, at the same round table by the window where Ben always sat when he came to the club. He was drawing on a paper placemat with a pencil. Hannah walked past the tea room on her way to the front doors, and Ben looked up. He waved her over without speaking. She stopped at his table. Ben turned the placemat around so she could read it. On the paper, in neat pencil rows, was the tide table for the week. Highs, lows, times. Yours, she said. This week. Neat. Ben looked up at her. He reads the water. She nodded, slow. Adam came down the corridor. He stopped a few steps from the doorway. He saw the two of them at the placemat. For a stretched second, nobody moved. Adam did not walk closer. Hannah did not step back. Ben went on shading the low tide with the side of his pencil. Then Adam nodded at the placemat as if to say, "That's a good chart," and stepped past into the office corridor. Hannah walked to the front doors. In her car, before she turned the key, she sat for 10 minutes with the folded questions in her lap. She started the engine at 5:02. Thursday night, in a house on Rifle Range Road in Mount Pleasant, Hannah opened the second folder Meg had allowed her to take home for the evening only, on the condition it came back sealed by 9 in the morning. She sat at the kitchen table under a single lamp. She poured half a glass of white wine and did not drink it. The folder had 2 clipped sections. Section 1. A National Transportation Safety Board Summary. A marine incident, April of 2023, on the Cooper River, 400 yards south of the Ravenel Bridge. A small privately owned sailboat, 32 feet, sail up, main halyard slack. A commercial harbor tug on a night reposition. The tug's operator had not radioed the change of course. The sailboat had had no time. The tug belonged to Corliss Marine Services, a subsidiary of Corliss Shipping Group. The sailboat was owned by Rachel Whitfield. 1 fatality. The file continued. Rachel Whitfield had died at the scene. Adam Whitfield had been on shore. Their son had been asleep at home. Attached to the NTSB summary was a settlement filing. Civil release, out of court, sealed. Filed through a broker of record. The amount had been redacted. The signatories on the Corliss side were listed. Dean Corliss had signed it personally. Section 2. Corliss Shipping's Protection and Indemnity Escrow Schedule, quarter over quarter, back to 2022. The lines of the money moved cleanly enough on the surface. But at the bottom of the second page, a footnote referenced 2 settled claims folded into an operating reserve rather than restated in the escrow footing. One of them was Rachel Whitfield's. The gap Colin had spotted was, in part, the shape of that claim. Hannah put the pages down. She sat with both hands flat on the table. She had understood, walking out of the reading room that afternoon, that Adam had known about the harbor tug for a long time. What she had not understood, until this moment, was what he had chosen to do with the knowing. He had waited. He had waited because in the summer of 2024, Dean Corliss had walked into the Whitfield Capital offices and asked, of his own volition, for the family's money. He had put the folder into Adam's hand, and Adam had opened it. The wine on the shirt at the gala had not been the first move. It had been the tell. Hannah understood, sitting at her kitchen table under the single lamp, why Adam had not stepped back on Saturday. She reached for her pen and her legal pad. On a clean page, she wrote a single line. 6-1. She underlined it. She did not sleep much. Around 2 in the morning, she stood at the kitchen window and looked out at the black yard. She thought about the man with the paper placemat and the tide chart, and about the boy with the crab magnet on the refrigerator, and about the woman in the yellow rain jacket at the wheel of a boat. She thought about her own board. 6 votes plus hers. She counted them, name by name, and she knew the shape of the vote before she called it. At 6:40 in the morning, she was in her office. She had already sealed the folder. Colin came in at 7 with 2 cups of coffee. Bored at 9, he said. Bored at 9. He set one of the cups down and looked at her. You slept? Enough. He waited. Colin, I need you to draft a resolution to withdraw from the Corliss facility on grounds of undisclosed liability and material misstatement of protection and indemnity reserves. Grounds sustained by what? Documents I have seen. Documents that will be produced to the audit committee under seal, not to the buyer. Colin nodded slowly. He picked up his coffee, and he went to draft. Hannah's phone buzzed on the desk. A single text from Meg Prescott. Return the folder by 9. Principal has signed. Hannah looked at the words for a long moment. Then she set the phone down face up so she could see it. She waited. Friday morning at 8:45, Margaret Prescott sent a 2-line notice from the offices of Whitfield Capital to Corliss Shipping's outside counsel, copying the deal's bond insurer of record. Whitfield Capital, by decision of its Class B principal, will not extend limited partner consent to the Corliss/Reed Marine Co. financing facility. This notice is final and not subject to renegotiation. She pressed send at 8:46. At 9:02, the Reed Marine Board of Directors convened by video from the Mount Pleasant conference room. Hannah presented the NTSB summary in redacted form to the audit committee, the protection and indemnity gap in full to all directors, and the withdrawal resolution to a vote. The count was 6-1. The dissenting director, an outside member Corliss had privately courted the summer before, resigned by lunch. By 11, 2 other limited partners on the Corliss facility had quietly withdrawn indications of interest. By 1, the deal's bond insurer, on receipt of the disclosure gap and independent counsel review, suspended surety coverage on 2 long-term port service contracts pending restatement. The $1.3 billion deal was gone. There was no press conference. There was no announcement. There was 1 email to counsel, 1 board resolution, 1 phone call from a broker to an underwriter. The market did not notice until Monday. The people involved noticed within 4 hours. Inside the Corliss shipping tower, a series of doors closed. The chief financial officer walked into Dean Corliss's office at 11:20 and did not come out for 40 minutes. The outside counsel arrived at noon. By 1, the announcement press packet that had been staged in a conference room on the 4th floor had been broken down and shredded, 1 folder at a time. At 2:15, Dean Corliss's Range Rover pulled into the alley behind Old Bay Club. Corliss walked in through the staff entrance. The kitchen manager stepped forward to ask his business, and Corliss put a hand up and walked past him toward the courtyard. Adam was there. He was checking a delivery of table linens against a manifest, the box on a folding cart, a clipboard in his left hand. Corliss stopped 10 feet away. You, he said. Adam did not look up from the clipboard. Corliss walked closer. You son of a bitch. You have any idea what you just did? Adam finished ticking off a line. He set the clipboard on top of the linen box. He turned to face Corliss and put his hands in his pockets. You knew whose boat that was. Corliss's mouth opened. Nothing came out of it. You knew whose boat that was, Adam said again. Corliss took a step forward. From the corner of the courtyard, 2 men in gray Old Bay Club jackets moved smoothly into the space between them without hurry. The head of house security, a Charleston native named Wade, put a light hand on Corliss's elbow. Sir, I'm going to walk you to your vehicle. Corliss shook the hand off. He looked at Adam over Wade's shoulder. This isn't over. It's over, Adam said. Wade walked Corliss out through the alley door. The door closed. The manifest was still on the linen box. Adam did not move for a moment. Then he picked up the clipboard and finished the count. At 3, Meg Prescott came through the courtyard gate with her portfolio under her arm. She did not sit down. She stood beside Adam at the linen box. It's done. I know. She put her hand on his shoulder for 2 seconds and took it away. Ben. With the aide. I'll get him at 4. She nodded. She left the way she had come. At 3:15, Hannah Reed sent a single text to a number Meg had given her that morning. I have the folder. Say when. Adam looked at the message. He typed back 4 words. Battery. 6. Cast iron lamp. He put the phone in his pocket and carried the linen box upstairs. At 6 o'clock, the light over the harbor was already going soft. Adam stood by the 3rd cast iron lamppost on the seawall, coat open, hands loose at his sides. Hannah walked down from the White Point Garden path. She was not carrying a folder or a phone. Her hair was pinned up. She stopped a step short of him. You could have told me on Monday, she said. You needed to find it. Why? Because if I told you, you would have trusted my paper. And your board would have known you trusted my paper. And when this goes to a lawsuit, and it will, that trust would be a piece of leverage against you. Hannah looked at him for a moment. You wanted me clean. I wanted your company clean. They started to walk south along the seawall toward the point where the wind kicked in over the palmetto trees. Neither of them touched the other. Your wife, Hannah said, after a stretch. Rachel. I'm sorry. Adam looked out at the water. He did not answer for a moment. She sailed in weather most people wouldn't, he said. That night wasn't the weather. That night was a tug that didn't call its heading. You've been sitting on that file for 2 years. Almost. Why now? Because Corliss came to us. He walked into an office where I could see him, and he asked for money. Hannah walked a few steps in silence. You could have gone to the NTSB in 2023. I did. The record we opened tonight is the one they closed. He wasn't the operator of the tug. He was the one who signed the settlement to keep the operator quiet. That takes longer to prove than to feel. And you kept the shirt on. I kept the shirt on. Hannah nodded. She looked out at the harbor. A shrimp trawler was coming in with its lights already on. Ben, she said. He knows there was an accident. He doesn't know the shape of it. He'll know when he's older. She thought about the placemat with the tide table. He's a good kid. He is. They reached the point. The wind came around the corner and pulled at Hannah's collar. She turned her back to it. Adam turned with her. I've never done this, she said. Done what? Walked with someone in the evening. After a day like this one. Me either. They stood for a while. I have to go by the office, Hannah said. There's paperwork. There's always paperwork. She almost smiled. She looked down at the pavement instead. Friday next week, she said. Come get coffee. Not a meeting. Just coffee. I'll pick the place. All right. She stepped away first. She walked back up the seawall the way she had come. Adam watched her the whole way to the top of the garden path, and then he turned his own way and walked toward Meeting Street. He picked up Ben from the aide at 7. He made eggs for dinner. He did not talk about the day at all. Ben told him that the low tide had come in 3 minutes earlier than the chart said, and Adam sat with that piece of information at the table for a long minute and told him that was worth noting. That night, Adam wrote nothing on any pad. He read to Ben from a book about lighthouses until the boy fell asleep, and then he sat in the kitchen with the light off and the harbor breathing outside the window. 3 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Ben sat at the end of the small wooden pier that ran off the seaward corner of the old Bay Club grounds. His sketchbook was open on his knee. He was drawing the profile of the tidal drop, in pencil, low against the pilings. Hannah walked up from the parking area carrying a small padded case. She wore jeans and a gray sweater. She sat down cross-legged on the boards next to him without asking. What's in the case? Ben said. Sensors. I brought them for the Harbor Watch program. Cool. May I see the drawing? He turned the sketchbook toward her. Rows of measurements down one side. A soft line across the middle for the current tide. In the top corner, the day of the week and the date. That's neat, Hannah said. You add the current? Only when I can see the boats moving. Makes sense. She let him work. Adam came out of the side door with 2 paper cups of hot chocolate and a coffee. He walked down the pier and handed 1 cup to Ben, 1 cup to Hannah. He did not ask her whether she wanted it. He kept the coffee for himself and sat down on the boards on Ben's other side. For a while, no one spoke. Then Meg Prescott appeared at the top of the pier, portfolio under her arm. Adam looked up. He nodded once. He stood, walked to her, and they spoke quietly at the top of the boards for 2 minutes. Meg went away. Adam came back down. He sat back down next to Ben. Everything all right? Hannah said, quiet. I'll be going to 2 meetings a month at Whitfield, Adam said. Principal review. Nothing more. She looked at him. Not the chair. Not the chair. Just a review seat. Enough. Enough, she said. She reached for the paper cup and blew across the top of the chocolate. Ben went back to his sketch. The sun had come up over the marsh grass. A gull walked along the second piling with its head cocked to one side. Hannah looked out over the harbor. Same time next Saturday, she said. Same time, Adam said. Ben, without looking up from the paper, said, the low is at 8:17. 8:17, Adam said. They sat on the pier until the chocolate was gone. Early October. A cool morning at the Battery. Reed Marine's first harbor security pilot had been staged at Public Wharf 6. No banner. No band. A folding table with a small ribbon strung across a control panel. A field engineer, 2 port operators, 3 of Hannah's team. 6 people in total, not counting Adam and Ben. Adam stood in the second row with Ben in front of him. Ben was holding a folded paper. Hannah stood in front of the ribbon in a blue coat. She thanked the port operators for the site and the field engineer for the install. She said the sensors would run for 90 days and the data would go to the State Marine Board and the Port Authority together. She cut the ribbon with a pair of shears the field engineer handed her. Small applause. The port operators went to inspect the panel. Hannah walked down to the second row. Ben handed her the folded paper without a word. She unfolded it. It was a hand-drawn tide chart for that day. Highs, lows, times, in his neat block figures. In the top right corner, in pencil, was the date. Hannah folded the paper into quarters and put it into the inside pocket of her coat. She did not say thank you. She put her hand on Ben's shoulder for a second and took it away. They walked out along the seawall in the direction of White Point Garden. Ben went ahead a few steps and stopped at each lamppost to look down at the water. Hannah walked beside Adam at his pace. Corliss, she said after a while. He stepped down last week. An institutional shareholder pushed. I read the filing. The surety bond insurer is running his contracts on tight review. He'll survive, in a smaller form. Good, Hannah said. Good enough. They walked another block. A cormorant flew low across the water on their left, 1 wing beat off the surface, then 2. There was a story in the paper on Tuesday, Hannah said. A widow of a longshoreman who was hurt on a Corliss dock in 2020. She'd never been paid the full settlement. The reporter had gotten the file. I saw it. That was not you. No, that was a reporter doing her job. Sometimes the work opens more doors than the door you meant to open. Hannah kept walking. She let the sentence sit. Whitfield ran its first new maritime commitment this quarter, Adams said. Small vehicle. Southeastern Regional. I signed. First one in 3 years. First one in 3 years. She nodded. She looked out over the water. Rachel, Hannah said. Adam waited. You keep the boat. I keep the boat. I don't sail it. I keep it. Ben knows how to. He'll sail it when he wants to. That's his call. He looked at the boy up ahead at the lamppost. Ben was counting something down at the water, pilings, maybe, or gulls, with a finger in the air. Rachel used to say, Adam said, that if you can read the water, you don't need much else. She meant tides. Ben reads the water. He does. They reached the last lamppost before the point where the wind came around. Hannah stopped there. Adam stopped a half step short of her. They both faced the harbor. Ben came back and stood between them without leaning on either. He held one of Adam's fingers in his hand, and he did not reach for Hannah, and she did not reach for him. It was not the day for that yet. It was the day for standing on the seawall in the wind with the pilot running on the wharf behind them. Somewhere south of the point, a shrimp trawler blew its horn once to signal a bar change. Ben, still watching the water, said the low today was at 11:43. 11:43, Adam said. Hannah repeated it under her breath, the way a person repeats a number they mean to remember. They stood there until the sun came out from behind the cloud that had been over the harbor since morning. The stain had lifted from the cotton months ago. What stayed had never been the wine.